Welcome to the Silver and Black Show presented by Cox. With former All-Pro tackle Lincoln Kennedy, I'm JT. Lincoln, the newest member of the Pac-12 Hall of Fame. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, JT. It's good to be here with you. Appreciate that.
That's another big honor. Do you have enough room in that trophy case?
I'm running out of space, but I'm humbled and honored to be marked with some of the greatest ones that ever played the sport. So it is a tremendous honor. Thank you.
You deserve to be there. Let's jump in and talk about the win in Dallas. One of the most watched regular season game in 3 decades. The Raiders came to play. They won a thriller in overtime. How did you see it? They needed that game. It was a big game. It felt that way.
From start to finish, I thought the Raiders were on the same page. I thought when you talked about the Cowboys playmakers, Micah Parsons had an impact early in the game, but Derek was able to trust his offensive line, go down the field, hit right there for Deshaun Jackson. Isaiah Jones had a big game. Hunter Renfrow had a big game. It really was good to see this offense clicking on all cylinders. And the defense did a good enough job out there to keep the Cowboys in check the entire game.
Well, what I thought was interesting was Dallas was chasing them the entire game. It was 8 points, and the Raiders couldn't put them away. It gets to overtime, but the Raiders on special teams, Carlson again with a big one, they played really strong to win that game.
Yeah, and you know, even despite the kickoff return for a touchdown, we're kind of invigorated Cowboys to get back into it. The Raiders took care of business on that first series in an overtime game, forcing the Cowboys to go 3 and out, get the ball back to their offense, and able to win in overtime.
Well, let's take a look at the standings here, and the Raiders are right in it. Lincoln, we've talked about this all year. The Raiders have to take advantage of games they need to win. And taking a look at the Chargers coming up at the Bengals and seeing the Browns at the Chiefs, the Raiders are in an ideal situation to win at home at Allegiant Stadium, get to 7-5, and if they get a little bit of help, they're right back in this.
Well, I was once told teams that win in November and December play in January, and this is the case. I hate to use it this early, but all these games have become a must-win for the Raiders because now when you look at the opponents that they're taking on, not only in the AFC, but the Washington football team gives them another chance to get closer to Kansas City. Then they still have to take care of business against Kansas City and the Chargers, which they have another game later in the season against.
Well, it was another big Derek Carr game, and if you take a look at the passing leaders here, this is rare air for Derek. Look at these names here and what he's done through 12 weeks heading into week 13. Lincoln, he's having a big-time year, and it's because he's aggressive. He's taken advantage of some big opportunities lately downfield.
There's no doubt about it, JT. The Raiders are 6-0. Derek Carr is 6-0 when he passes for more than 300 yards, and he did it in the Cowboy game, and so that's one of the reasons why he's up there with those stat leaders. And again, the aggressiveness comes from, in my opinion, 3 places. It comes from trust. You got to trust your offensive line. It comes from patience. You have to let those downfield routes develop. And more importantly, it comes from being aggressive. And when he is aggressive, he's looking downfield. He's looking for those open routes, those intermediate to late routes, taking those big strikes, which really demoralizes defenses because you've got those big chunks of yards that you can't account for, and you don't want to give up to offenses.
Well, as you can see with this quote, Hall of Famer Kurt Warner thinks he's a really, really, really good quarterback. When he plays aggressive, he could be as good as anyone in the league. There we go again, Lincoln, aggressive. How does he become more aggressive here the rest of the way with the season with so many games on the line?
Well, I don't necessarily think you need to be more aggressive. You just need to continue to be aggressive. You continue to look downfield. There are going to be opportunities that are going to come open for guys like Deshaun Jackson and Isaiah Jones on the outside, on the top end of the defenses. When defenses are looking for Hunter Renfrow or Darren Waller underneath, there are going to be opportunities to stretch the defense. Brian Edwards can have a big day as well. We've seen him get chunks of yards throughout the year. So there are a number of weapons that he has to go. And we haven't even talked about his backs that he can go to down the field.
Here's quarterback Derek Carr.
I have always been about you have to have a solid run game. No, that doesn't mean you have to do it 40 times, but you have to, when you turn around to hand the ball off, it has to mean something to the defense, you know. And without that, we wouldn't be able to throw the ball as much as we can and much as we do down the field. I've talked to you guys this year about just taking an aggressive approach. You know, I think that stems, one, from you have to have time to do it, and two, you have to have a play caller that wants to do those things, and 3, you have to have the guys to be able to do that. You know, I would sit up here some years and try and beat around some questions because we maybe necessarily didn't have some guys that was their best thing, so we had to figure out how to move it a different way, you know. And you know, now we have some guys that can really fly, and there's no secret we're trying to throw the ball deep. But at the same time, that's another way to get the ball in Josh's hands. If they want to play really soft, I have to be smart enough to check it down and get it to him. So to us, that's just another touch for Josh. And it may be a passing stat, but really it's, you know, just another touch to get him the ball in his hands.
Lincoln, we've talked about it. You got to stay aggressive. How do you keep this offense open? Sometimes they take a step back after a big game. There's no more room for this. They have to stay on the attack.
If you listen to that excerpt, you hear Derek saying that you have to be able to have balance. A running game is a quarterback's best friend. Being able to have balance, hand off the ball, get some yards, make productive. You have those linebackers and those safeties decide to cheat up, get their nose more in the line of scrimmage around the box. Then you can hit them over the head with a play action because that sets up passes down the field. More importantly, if guys want to play soft because they don't respect your run, then you're able to throw down, check down routes to your backs or underneath stuff. So it's just a combination of taking what the defense gives you, JT, but more importantly, being aggressive when you see those linebackers and those safeties sticking their nose up to be able to take a shot downfield.
Well, Josh Jacobs was brought in out of college to be one of those guys, but then Kenyon Drake and what he's brought to the table. So this is the strength of the team. They want to attack downfield to Jackson and Waller when healthy and all these targets, but throwing underneath, these guys can catch the ball and get upfield. Josh
Jacobs has gotten progressively better coming out of the backfield and catching the football over the last couple seasons. Kenyon Drake added that dimension to the offense. So, yes, you're also right there. And Jalen Machar, when he's healthy, has that aspect of not only being able to pick up the blitz, but being a productive check down back. All of that works into this offensive strategy, and more importantly, the aggressiveness nature of this offense, what you can do. Speaking of running backs, the game will be decided on the ground with two of the better young rushers in the league. Coming up, we'll tell you who and who has the upper hand.
The Silver and Black Show is brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders, and by Allegiant, the official airline of the Las Vegas Raiders. Low fares, nonstop flights. Book now only at Allegiant.com.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Show. When we talk about running backs, this is a real matchup. Gibson had 36 touches and 79 plays, Lincoln, on Monday. And this is a short week. Could they really go back to him touching the ball that often? Well, unfortunately for the Washington football team with McKenzie, they're sort of back down. They're really shorthanded at running back. It'll be a tall task to ask of Gibson, but he's a tough guy that's wanted to run hard and wants the football. I don't put anything past him until you see him do it, but it's going to be a tough task. Lincoln, it was obvious that was their game plan against Seattle. Run the ball, run the ball. You look at time of possession here, 41 minutes. They dominated there. Yeah. And I think they're going to bring that to Las Vegas. But I want to get into Josh Jacobs. I thought he ran fresh. His shoulders were high. He had explosive plays. How did it look from the booth? Well, since this young man has come to the National Football League, we haven't had the pleasure of seeing him run as hard as he ran in that Dallas game this late in the season. He's been marred by injuries in the early part of his career. But because of the running back by committee, because the Raiders have really been inefficient and ineffective a lot of times in the games in the running game, he hasn't really been as beat up. Now, he is having a little issue with his ankle this week, but I do expect him to play. With that being said, the transition of going between him and Kenyon Drake has really added to the number of carries and the strength of him running the football this late in the season. With Chase Young out, tell me how this run defense is so good. It is stout. They are physical. This is what Rivera and Del Rio wanted, and they built that defense up front. Well, they've got guys that are coming downhill, and it's going to be interesting to see with the minus of Landon Collins, their safety, how effective they are going to be, especially against the interior run, because it was a real big part of that run defense. But much to what you're talking about, this Washington football team has been hard to run on, and teams have really given up because they thought they could take strikes downfield. More importantly, it's played into Washington's hands because a lot of times, a lot of games they've won that time of possession. Lincoln, it's important. How long do you establish the run in this game and get out of it if it's not working? You just saw that with the stats with Washington. First quarter, because we want Derek to come out and attack, but we also know they want to get Josh going again. I think this game plan is much more difficult than it looks. Well, there's no true formula on how to establish a run. What you want to do is you want to have what we call first down efficiency. You come down and you get some positive yards on first down. That means you set up short and possibly the second and third down and possibly short issues. And then you have the ability to run or pass, not necessarily forcing your hand if you're third and long. So it's not necessarily a formula of how to establish it. It's just taking advantage of the opportunities. And keep this in mind. Most offensive lines feel that if you're getting 2-3 yards crack in the beginning of the game, as the game wears on to the third and fourth quarter, those same plays should get you 4, 5, 6 yards, break a run for down the field. Coming up next, my weekly conversation with head coach Rich Bisaccia when we continue on the Silver and Black Show. Welcome back to the Silver and Black Show. Earlier this week, I spoke to interim head coach Rich Bisaccia about the Raiders' huge win over the Cowboys on Thanksgiving and what he expects from this Washington team that's on a 3-game winning streak. Coach, epic win on Thanksgiving. Let's go back to it first. And how did you feel personally after the game? You close them out in overtime. It's one of the most watched football games of all time, almost 30 years. What was the moment like back in the locker room with your coaches and players as you celebrated that win?
Yeah, well, certainly it was exciting, going in there and playing in that venue at that time slot on Thanksgiving Day and to come out of there with a victory in the way in which we did it, going into overtime and just kept competing and competing and competing all the way to the bitter end. So, we went through a little chaotic situation on the field towards the end of the game trying to shake hands. So I think we addressed that, and our guys did a great job, I thought, with that particular situation in the locker room. And then we celebrated the victory and got dressed and tried to get out of there and get home. Did you feel the Raider Nation there? There were a lot of fans there, even though it was a big crowd for Dallas. Yeah, the Raider Nation travels well, so we got a chance to see them going into the parking lot. We got a chance to see them coming out. They always seem to stay, hold up the banners and hold up the Raider shield and those things coming out. So it's always good to see them going in and coming out. As we wait for the status for Darren Waller on Sunday, tell me about Foster Moreau and your relationship with him and how he's growing as a leader. And what can we expect? Because when Darren was out against Philadelphia, he stepped up, Foster, and had a big game. And we're expecting him to play big the rest of the way. Yeah, I guess you can expect the same thing, right? He's shouldered the responsibility of more type snaps on offense. He plays a lot for us in the kicking game. He does things as a true Y for us on the line of scrimmage, and he can do things for us as we've seen in the passing game. He makes that big catch over the back of the helmet a few weeks ago. So we're expecting him to perform true to form as he's done all year. The Washington football team, wow, 3 in a row. They're in the playoffs as of now as the 7th seed in the NFC. This winning streak, what they're doing, it seems like it's all ball control. 41 minutes against Seattle on 43 rushes. When you look at the tape, what do you see with this team? Well, we see a team that plays to the bitter end as well. They're finding a way to win. They've lost kickers, they've lost defensive ends, they've lost personnel people, but they just have a gritty personality about them where they find ways to win. I think they're playing a lot towards their quarterback. He's hard to bring down. He can extend plays on third down. He's not afraid to zip the ball in there. We saw it on Monday night to make big plays. And then they're really stout up front on defense with their 2 inside players and what they're doing with Collins, putting him in the box now. And I think Coach Del Rio's done a great job of adapting to his personnel and playing physical. They're ball hawking on defense, but it does start with the run game from them, Let's go to Max and Heinicke and what they're doing. One gets doubled, the other has a big game. I was thinking of Howie Long and Greg Townsend back in the day. One day someone's feasting with all the numbers and sacks as the other guy's getting double teamed. Is there a comparison there? Well, I just think their energy, again, not only in the locker room and on the practice field, but what they bring to us on game day and the way in which they compete. I think they're at an unprecedented level in the way in which they compete during the course of the game. They're in supreme physical condition, and they just go and go and go and go. And let's not, mistake what Quentin's doing inside and what Big Hank is doing inside. And then we come in there with Solomon as well, and Square's been doing a good job in there. So I think they've been picking each other up. We've had good rushes from Carl, and Cleve's played inside a little bit on third down. He's played outside, so it starts up front with us right now. Let's move to your offense, and what are you seeing with Josh Jacobs? He had his best game, and he really had a burst. He was running physically. He got to the second level there. Can we count on him here now the second half of the year? He looks like physically he's in the best shape of the season. We'd like to think so. He's had good weeks of practices, and you've seen Greg get Kenyon involved as well, not only in the pass game, but in the run game. We're starting to move people a little bit up front. We're playing a little bit better up front as well. We're getting a little bit of an identity of running the football. We had some good runs in crucial situations in overtime. And then what we've done in the run game has really done a good job for us, play action pass-wise, and giving Derek a chance to step up inside and really make some explosive plays. Coach, I want to talk about the penalties. You've never been involved in a game with 28 total penalties. It was a very interesting game, and you won that game. When you looked at the tape, are there easy penalties to clean up, mental, pre-snap? What do you think of that? Well, I think we've talked about some of the penalties that weren't called were almost more egregious than the ones that were called. So it just became one of those games for both teams. But we like to look at there's concentration penalties, which we need to take care of. We can do a good job with that, not only in practice, but how we're focused in the particular drive in the game. Then there's judgment penalties, the OPIs, the defensive pass interferences, kind of leave those up to the officials at times. And then there's the not so smart penalties, the ones that we want to don't be selfish at the time and mess up a whole drive for us, and don't let one of those penalties penalties affect the outcome of the game. So we talk about them all the time. We try to adjust them in practice, and we don't want to take the aggressiveness away of our players, but we also want to be a little bit smarter as to when those penalties are committed.
Good luck against Washington, Coach.
Thank you.
This segment of the Silver and Black Show has been brought to you by Visit Vegas. Vegas is the greatest arena on earth. Plan your trip now at visitvegas.com. The Silver and Black Show has been brought to you by 1800, the best taste in tequila and official partner of the Raiders. And by Chevron with Techron gives you unbeatable cleaning and mileage. Chevron, together ahead.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm playing, probably some of my best football I've ever played. And I think that's, a credit to, the coaches and just really working hard and keeping the ball in our possession. I think that's the biggest thing. When we like to take shots downfield, we like to get those big chunk plays, but if they're getting out of there, checking the ball down, it's just as good. So as long as we keep getting first downs and scoring points, that's all that matters. And yeah, the confidence now and how we feel now before our bye week is total 180. We still had confidence during that 4-game skid that we could be great, but it was just going out there and executing. And to come back after the bye against Tampa and doing against them and building on that the last 3 weeks have been huge for us.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Show. That's Taylor Heinicke, and last year he made his name against Tom Brady in the playoffs, even though they lost, and he beat Tom Brady this year on this winning streak. What do you see with him when you look at the tape?
This guy has provided a jolt to the Washington football team. Coming into this season, there was a big question mark about who was going to quarterback this team. An undrafted guy out of Old Dominion comes in and he takes it over, makes it his own. Now, he might not be the greatest athlete, he might not have the strongest arm, but what he's provided for this Washington football team is an amount of enthusiasm and vigor, and he's going out there at times where he's taking it on his shoulder to make big plays. You saw it in the Tampa Bay game, saw it last week against Seattle, and that's why he's been invigorated, and that's why he's trying to earn himself a job.
Lincoln, there's going to be free agent quarterbacks. Okay. Come on here with this. Does he have this job going forward? Are they going to go with him long term?
Depends on what the free agency market feels like. Because if you think about it, let's say Russell Wilson is floating out there. Well, if you're the New Orleans Saints or someone else, you've got to make a play for Russell Wilson. Not to say the Washington football team won't, but they might not be in a place where the quarterback who's calling his own shots will want to go there. This is a team that was considered in rebuilding mode. Coach Rivera's got them playing very well. They're still in the playoff chase, so anything is possible from this point forward, JT.
All right, let's take a look at the Raiders' defensive line led by Yannick Ngakoue and obviously Mad Max Crosby. Let's talk about what they do, because I think of Howie Long and Greg Townsend back in the day when one was feasting, the other was being double-teamed. What do you see with these two?
The pressure, outside presence, especially in today's game where you have a lot of quarterbacks who are starting shotgun, don't have the ability to stand back there and survey down the field because the presence of Ngakoue and Crosby always coming around the corner. But look, give some love to the interior guys, because Solomon Thomas, Quentin Jefferson, Jonathan Hankins, and others that have been in that mix have also got an interior presence. Being able to rush with 4 guys is a key to playing this defense well. You don't have to bring blitzes. You're able to generate pressure. Quarterbacks aren't able to hold on to the ball for long. So Ngakoue, Crosby, and all the rest of the crew have done a great job at applying pressure all season long.
One player that we want to highlight is Tre'von Moehrig, and the year he's having. The stats for this rookie are incredible. And now, Lincoln, he's getting national attention playing safety for the Silver and Black. He's a player who's coming into his own right now.
Deservingly so. A young man who can cover sideline to sideline, what is absolutely essential in this cover 3 defense. He has the ability to run. More importantly, he has the ability to track the ball in the air. Another reason why quarterbacks don't want to go deep, because you have press coverage, which means you have a man underneath possibly, and a safety like Moehrig just playing over the top.
Yeah, I love the way he has confidence. He's out there. You just know what you have with him. Overall, I wish this defense did a better job intercepting the football. But, Lincoln, that could happen in this game. I think there's going to be a couple of deep balls in the air from McLaurin, and they're going to try to attack the Raiders down the middle of the field.
Yeah, there'll be opportunities that'll come. It's one of the ways that they play the press coverage. A lot of times the defensive backs don't get their head turned around to see the ball, but you know what? There will be some more opportunities that come from this defense later.
What about Jonathan Abram here? I want to get into him and what he needs to do. I'm sensing with the way Washington runs the football, he's going to be tempted to be in the box. Perryman, Abram trying to tackle this running game.
Well, I think you're right there, JT, but you also got to be smart about it because Jonathan Abram and crew got to be feeling that the Washington football team is going to want to throw underneath and try to set up the ability to go over the top, maybe intermediate long routes, and that's the last thing you want to give up. Remember sort of the formula that a number of teams have had against the Raiders this season, throwing the short routes and yards after the catch. Kansas City did it. Cincinnati did it. Dallas tried to do it without a lot of success, but this Washington football team has got a very big tight end, which makes a coverage issue in the middle hard for the Raiders, and more importantly, they like to throw short as well.
All right, Lincoln, let's cut to the chase. They got off to a big start. We're talking Baltimore and Pittsburgh,
right,
and now they could be rewarded with a win here to get to 7-5. You're not scoreboard watching when you're calling the game with Brant, but you know how important this game is. And it's a game at home at Allegiant Stadium, and they got to protect home field here. Raider Nation stepping up. They've got to come out with a burst of energy, ready to go. How about a quick start in this first quarter?
Absolutely. I mean, you would love to see that because this team notoriously has started slow throughout the season, has shown flashes of starting quick, and they've had, in those instances, games have fallen in their favor. But in this one, as I said earlier in the show, JT, I think every game from here out is a must-win. So the Raiders can ill afford to stub their toe on teams that they should beat. The Washington football team is a team they should beat.
Ron Rivera had them running through the locker room after that game.
Oh, yeah.
They're playing like every game is the playoffs, and I think the Raiders have to treat that every game from here on out.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And that's the thing where coaching steps in. Coaches coach, players play. But the coaches are there to get their guys motivated to go out there and do what they do best. You saw at Thanksgiving against Dallas on national TV, the Raiders had a very good game. All phases, maybe a couple breakdowns here and there, but still, they took on a good team. They beat a good football team. That, to me, is what the Raiders are capable of. And if they have any aspirations of making a playoff push, they need to win every game from here on out.
Well, they need to, and this is a big game. And again, coming off Thanksgiving and what that game meant to this organization, the coaching staff and the players, they have a unique opportunity at home at Allegiant Stadium for the Raiders to get a win and go to 7-5. Thanks for joining us.